Good afternoon, folks. This is Augie. We're down at the creek on our property, which you can see is running pretty high. A couple days ago, it was clear up here to my feet. But if you're a rock hounder, you love that high water because that just means stuff's tumbling around, and next year's crop of agates is getting rolled up into the sunlight for you to go out and pick. The rivers have been pretty high. It's been pretty rainy, so there's not much rock hounding going on here this time of year. So I thought maybe I'd sit down and do a short video on all the tools that I use in different situations of rock hounding. The first thing I'll talk about is just some rock hounding etiquette. There's a lot of tools out there that are for digging, and there's also a lot of things that we need to do when we dig, and one of those things is filling in our holes. So if you're going to go out into the woods, public lands, or the high desert, and you're going to dig holes, please, a couple things. Fill your holes in when you're done. Don't dig up underneath live trees. I mean, that's a really... It's just not a cool thing to do, and it's a really good way to get your access cut off. Be safe. Don't dig a big hole and dig yourself in 3 feet with 3 feet of overburden above your head. Take the time to knock that stuff down and move it. Clear any rocks away that could fall. If you're digging under a stump, just be careful. Safety should outweigh the treasure, in my opinion. Wear gloves. A lot of the materials that we dig, agate, opal, jasper, they fracture. Obsidian, they fracture and can have razor sharp edges on them. I can't tell you how many times I've cut my fingers digging. If you're walking on a creek and you're hiking a creek or you're kayaking a creek, there's no reason to dig at all. You're picking up what you find on the surface. Please don't dig in the banks of creeks or rivers, especially in the Pacific Northwest, where we have endangered salmon and steelhead. And I'm a big fisherman. As much as I love rocks, I love salmon and steelhead. So I don't want to do anything to damage their habitat. So think about that when you're in the river, looking for agates. Thirdly, if you're going to go out and prospect and be in the woods or in the high desert, you need to let people know where you're going. You need to let them know, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm going to check back in with you. And you should have somebody with you. You should always go out in pairs. I don't always go out in a pair, but we should. And if you're like me, if you're a deer and elk hunter, that's switched over to rock hounding, you're going to find out really quickly that it's a lot easier to get lost prospecting for rocks than it is for deer and elk, because you're looking at the ground all the time. So a GPS is great and pretty important. I carry a Garmin InReach Mini. It's about that big. It attaches to my backpack. It's got an SOS button on it, and I can send text messages with it. It links to my smartphone, so I can run a map just like a normal GPS. It's actually easier than a normal GPS because you can see better. You can set waypoints with it. You can track yourself. If you fall and break your leg, you can hit that SOS button, and you're going to have somebody coming for you. It requires a subscription, but it's worth it, especially as we get older, in life, and I'm not as agile as I was 25 years ago, obviously. Another thing that I utilize a lot too, as far as technology, is I have a program on my phone called OnX Maps. It's the word on and then just an X, and you download that to your phone. You can pay a yearly subscription. You can do it by the state. You can do all the states, whatever you want. I have all the states because I rock hound, all over the West, and I deer hunt all over the West. So for me, I just pay for the yearly subscription. You can work. It works off a cell phone signal and the GPS in your phone, but you can download maps. So if you're going to be rock hounding in McDermott, Oregon, you can download that section of map onto your phone, and then you'll still be able to track yourself and see your waypoints and stuff like that because your GPS and your phone will be working. So it's a really cool tool, and I'm just going to say it. There's no reason, no excuse ever for trespassing. With all of the technology we have nowadays, there's no reason to ever be on somebody's claim. There's no reason to trespass on somebody's property. You can look all that stuff up before you go, and you should. If you're going to go prospecting or rock hounding around McDermott, Oregon, or Sucker Creek, or wherever it might be, Quartzville, you should get online and see where the claims are, the active claims are, and you should stay off of those claims. Glass Buttes is another one. Be respectful of people's claims. And a lot of times, if you can find the people and you ask them, they'll allow you to dig, or they'll allow you to surface pick. But you got to ask the question. If there's a fence, you don't cross it, because that fence is put up for a reason. It doesn't have to have a no trespassing sign. If somebody puts up a fence, that's because that's their property, and if you want to go there, you ask permission. So that's just the way I think about it. I wouldn't want people just wandering up my friend's creek here from the property down below and walking all over their grass and looking for rocks. But he would probably allow it if you asked him. So anyway, I'm going to move on, get off my soapbox. Let's get into some tools. So I do 3 kinds of rock hounding. I walk or I kayak on creeks. I prospect in BLM land or Forest Service or whatever it might be, and then I have spots that I actively dig on public land. So let's start with kayaking and creek walking. I really don't bring any tools with me because, like I said earlier, we're not digging. We're walking, we're kayaking, we're scanning the bottom of the creek, we're bending over, we're picking stuff up. At the most, I'll bring an extendable walking stick with a metal tip, just to kind of keep me from slipping and sliding. I will put this scooper in my kayak on the bigger rivers. If it's colder, I don't want to get in the water, or if it's so deep, I don't want to get in over my head. This is a great tool. I will sometimes bring a snorkel and a mask, and I'll go all in and get down under the moving water or into the deeper holes, and you'll be amazed at what you can find that you can't see from above. Polarized glasses. Sometimes I wear them, sometimes I don't. It just depends on the light and the clarity of the water. Sometimes I think they help. Sometimes I think that they actually make it harder for me to determine, different colorations and stuff like that. So kayaking and creek walking, that's how I started, and it's still to this day my favorite way to rock hound. Doesn't require a lot of tools. The next thing that I would do is I like to prospect. So, I'll do some research. I'll read some geology papers in Oregon. You have the Bin newsletters, or I'll look at, I'll do overlays on Google Earth and try to figure out where the formations are that I know I'm going to be able to find, chalcedony or something like that. And then I'll go to that area and I'll get out and I'll hike and I'll prospect. And when I'm doing that, I do a couple things. Again, I bring this walking stick. It's got this metal tip on it, and when you're hitting the ground, if you've been rock hounding it for very long, you find out really quickly that things like agate and jasper and opal have a completely different sound to them than just a standard rock. So sound's a big one. So I use this a lot. The other big thing is my prodder. If you can see this, it's probably 2.5 feet long. You can stick it down in the dirt until you hit something solid, and then you can dig it up and see if it's what you're looking for. Sound doesn't work so much on this. It's a mild steel, so it doesn't really differentiate too much between sound. It's basically just you're poking in the ground and there's something there. Let's get into the digging portion. I have certain tools that I bring with me every time I dig. One is my little shovel. I always have this. Why is this important? Because this helps you move your overburden out of your hole as you continue to dig, and it also allows you to fill that hole in when you're done. So I have a couple of different picks. You know, I don't have a rock hammer on the table. I think we all probably start with a rock hammer. Quite honestly, I don't use mine very much anymore. Probably my smallest one is this, made by S-Wing. It's called a burpee. It's got magnets here, which I guess if I was hunting for meteorites would be something I'd use, but I don't. It's got a little bit of a pick end and then a pointy end. It's great for getting in there. It's kind of heavy, but it does do a good job moving dirt. Probably the two tools I use the most are my S-Wing Geo Paleo pick. I bring this with me everywhere because I can move a lot of stuff with this in a hurry, whether it's clearing brush or prying larger rocks out of the way or out of the hole, or just if I got to knock down a bunch of overburden because I've dug my way in a couple of feet and I need to get that off my head. This works really great for that. But my favorite tool is this. And I don't know what it's called or even who makes it, but I discovered this watching Outback Opal Hunters and Aussie Gold, whatever, on Discovery Channel. And I was like, I gotta have one of those. It looks pretty cool. I love this thing. It's super light. You're not gonna wear yourself out using it all day. It's got a good pointy end for getting in there. It makes good sound. You can tell when you hit an agate with this thing. It's got this end that's sharpened, which just, it going through roots and stuff, it's like a hot knife through butter. I love it. And then if you lay it on its side, you can pull a lot of dirt with this baby. So this is probably my number one tool for digging. I just love this thing. And I'll try to do a little research and see if I can figure out where it's at, but you can find this on Amazon. I get most of my stuff off of Amazon. And I can't remember what I searched for. It might have been, you know, Outback Aussie Gold digging tool or something like that. It took me a while to find it, but I love that thing. You know, the last thing we have, or, you know, if you're doing hard rock stuff, let's say you're up at Eagle Rock in Central Oregon and you're trying to dig a big old chunk of moss agate out of the rock wall, you'll use this with a hammer. I don't use it too often. I just don't really enjoy that kind of rock hounding. Maybe I'll get into it more someday, but as you can see, mine's still pretty sharp. So anyway, if anybody has any tools that I don't have on here or tools that they think work better in certain situations, I'd love to hear it in the comments. I'm always looking for to learn and find an easier, better way to do something. You know, if you disagree with what I said, put it on the comments. I'd love to talk about it. I appreciate the people that are watching this video. If you could, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep it growing. Springtime is coming fast. We've got trips planned to Montana for quartz crystals and sapphires and fossils. We'll have a couple of carnelian digs this summer or spring, and plenty of kayaking trips on the Willamette and some of the littler rivers that run into the Willamette River, and then some creek walks as well. So stay tuned. We got a lot of good stuff coming in the future. Have a safe day. If you're in Oregon like me, enjoy this beautiful weather we're supposed to have for the week. It doesn't come very often. Thanks, folks.